So we're going to call now Robert Janssen. Robert is a managing partner for Outsource Brazil, providing advisory services for business growth and market development for organizations wanting to expand in the North and South American markets, Europe and Asia. Robert has delivered 300 presentations around 5 continents. A dual citizen of United States and Brazil, Robert began his career in IT sector in '86. He occupied several executive positions in American and Brazilian corporations. And my understanding is that you call yourself a Merioca, is that correct?
Well, yeah, this is part of it. Being half Brazilian, half American, like my friend Amit. And I have a new one for you, Merindioca, because you're also Indian, right? So I am only a Merioca. Actually, who comes from Rio is called Carioca. Carioca is a Tupi Guarani, the native Indians from Brazil. And Cari means white man, Oca means house. So who is typically from Rio, and I'm gladly from Rio as well, is called Carioca. So I am half American, half Brazilian. My Brazilian side was raised in Rio. So I always call myself a Merioca, but my friend Amit has beat me.
I'm actually Capixaba.
Oh, Capixaba, okay, well, so you're going to be a Meri Indixaba.
There you go.
There you go. By the way, who has been to Brazil? Raise your hand. Who has been to Sao Paulo? Who has been to Rio? Well, those that have been to Sao Paulo and have not been to Rio, go back. You have never been to Brazil. Okay, I want to take a little example from what Amit mentioned, living in a high inflationary environment, what it represents. Because he was going day to day trying to get a hot dog. And I was telling American citizens, American business people here in 1994, that the high inflation times, where the basic difference was when you got to the Guarulhos airport in Sao Paulo, you negotiate your cab ride on the way in. Because if you did on the way out, it would be already more expensive. So, you know, it was not only a daily, but an hourly basis, right? Also, while he was talking, and the previous people that talked as well mentioned about, you know, the high inflationary era, all of the economic plans that we lived through, which today is very key for us understanding. And if I were to synthesize in one single sentence, the Brazilian value prop is hit the ground running. What we call jeitinho brasileiro today in this country is hit the ground running. And that has a lot of cost for business, because, you know, if you're going to go down there by yourself and try to find and test the water without any direct connection on the ground, you're going to spend more time, you're going to spend more money. So when you see all these slides going up, finding a local partner is key. I also want to mention my friend Rodney, because, you know, we hear about the bureaucracy in Brazil to do business, and yes, it's true. But what he forgot to say is that bureaucracy is based on the same premises of that Portuguese guy that opened the door when he was trying to run over the girl, the old lady. Right? See, our Portuguese heritage is what makes the foundation of our legal system and all the bureaucracy we see on the ground. So covering the agenda today, I would like to see, well, first, Brazil is definitely open for business. I've always said in the past that Brazil one day will rise because it will be the last virgin beach on the ground. You know? So I'll show a little bit of Brazil economics indicators and IT. What is cloud computing? Because this was always actually brief in the beginning. So I'll try to rush through that because it's not so pertinent to what the audience wants. There's a survey there, some future trends in Brazil, and some last comments. So this was 1986 until 1997. I put this on purpose at the last minute after everyone made so many comments about how many different economic plans we lived through. You know, I remember exactly where I was in March 15th, 1990, when Clara, our first elected president, he just slammed the door on us and took everything we had. All our assets were gone. And I was crying because I was left just sucking my thumb. But look at that. You see, from '86 to '94, there were 7 different economic plans. And this is what made us have the best economics analysts, and this is what made us to be able to adjust to adversity, to adjust to different hostile environments. So I put that slide up after we had made all those comments. But there's one thing that people don't realize about Brazil is the sheer size it represents. And we have a slide here where we try to combine 3 criteria in one single snapshot. So it's a country with over 4 million square kilometers, countries with over 1 million population size, and countries with over 1.5 trillion GDP. Only 3 countries match those criteria on one single shot: US, China, and Brazil. Now, if you look at what that does to the general economic indicators, you'll see that we have the 2nd largest commercial air fleet in the world, despite our issues with current airports that we have. They're the 2nd largest private executive jets market in the world, and it goes on. You see the indicator that people don't realize, and they're normally not associated, especially here in Silicon Valley, where we're always targeting IT or something of that nature. Most multinationals have been on the ground for over 40, 50 years, and what this does, it embeds just best business practices. You know, when you go down there, you're going to be doing the same type of environment that you feel here. Of course, with more bureaucracy, with a different type of business dynamics. What Rodney mentioned about being relationship intensive, I believe that every market is relationship intensive. We are just more. Right? Sometimes having the best solution will not guarantee that that door will open for you. What will guarantee that the door will open for you is the relationship you have behind that door. And still, when you go through that door, it might not still be your best skill sets that will make you or give you the chance of having voice, active voice. What we'll do is a trust that you have built within that relationship. And yes, you better be good at what you do after that, because otherwise you get a kick in your fanny outside the room. So, looking at some of the other indicators, you know, Brazil has had a very low employee turnover. Overall, yes, we have right now a lack of highly skilled labor, but what you'll find is there is a low turnover and there's a lot of loyalty on the ground. You were asking about how to do internet and mobile business in Brazil. You're going to find different dynamics there where you're going to probably focus first in the corporate sector. You'll have to do like you do here. You have to have immediate relationships with the handset manufacturers and with the carriers. Otherwise, you're going nowhere. So it's going to be the same thing probably here, right? Technical domain. People don't realize the 2nd largest mainframe installed base outside US is in Brazil. Why? Because of the high inflation area. The banks had to keep ahead of the spread, ahead of inflation, so they invest heavily in technology, and at the time it was mainframes. While on the same side, though, the 2nd largest Java community outside US is in Brazil too. So technically speaking, Brazil can fit all the way from mainframe down to open source. Quality of the Brazilian IT professional, again, we don't dispute the quality, we dispute the amount of high qualified professional skills we have and the cost of it when you compare it to other destinations. Bear with me that some of my information and my data here is targeted more for services industry, where we compete with India, we compete with China, with Mexico, and the Eastern European markets. So some of the information is actually targeted for that. When you look at the overall IT spend internally, Brazil, within the big countries, is only 2nd to China. But China, I think, is just, a country no one can compare itself to, because their numbers are just gigantic. By the way, did you guys hear about Russia, that there's no more mafia? Yeah, they're all in government now. Well, Brazil IT sector, if you look at now the BRICS, because, everything now is about the BRICS. And I want to make a comment here with they talked about the 2008 recession, which Brazil was the least hit and the first to come out. There are a few dynamics here that are very interesting. First, Brazil has a very diverse economy. There's over 45 strong economic sectors. Has everyone flown American Eagle in this country? American Eagle, who has flown it? You've flown a Brazilian aircraft. Embraer, 145. So the fact that we have a very strong, diverse economy helped us. And then again, the commodities, Brazil is a very big commodity producer. Commodities will still have a high price. The other thing is the fact that Brazil, and this goes again now to the last question made to Amit by the gentleman there watching his BlackBerry right now. What's your name? Todd. Todd? Yeah. Todd, what happens with Brazil is that we were never born globally, or never with our global mindset. We're a closed country. We have 45, 50 strong economic sectors. We got to take care of here. Most of the businessmen you talk to in Brazil, I don't have my hands full. How can I think about going outside? We have never learned, the Brazilian business person, on average, has never looked outside. He doesn't know what it is to be international. He doesn't look automatically across to Silicon Valley. He looks next door. He looks to Campinas. He looks to São Paulo. He looks to Porto Alegre. Therefore, this is what we're learning right now. This is one of the biggest challenges for Brazilian businessmen, is to learn that now we live in a global environment. The other issue is, and this goes back to bureaucracy. I'm going to challenge the Brazilian guys here on this table. How many political parties do we have in Brazil?
Too many. Dozens.
What's the exact number?
No idea.
No idea. There's 28. There's 28 political parties. Very politically fragmented. Think about governing Brazil. Now, we in the United States are accustomed to a bipartisan structure. It's Democrats, Republicans, right? There's a Brazilian, there's an American political scientist who is a Brazilianist, a Brazil specialist, Albert Fisher. And he was saying the other day that the basic difference between Brazil and U.S. is that while in the U.S. we're bipartisan, it's Democrats and Republicans, so what changes are the politicians, the parties are always the same. Brazil is the reverse. What changes are the parties, the politicians are always the same. And think about governing or trying to get a bill through Congress when you have 28 different political parties, all the give and take and all the wheeling and dealing that goes through. And especially the wheeling and dealing with our Portuguese heritage. So that makes a lot for what we still experience as far as being a country tied into our heritage and at the same time become a global market, become a global player. We have a huge challenge ahead of us, but it's a business mindset. Now in Brazil, we are right now in the process of, in the IT space, taking business people and trying to switch that business mindset. That when you leave Brazil and come to the US or go to Europe, leave that jeitinho brasileiro, what we call, leave that Brazilian mindset home, because it doesn't work there. Yes, it's good to be very flexible, and I'll have a little story here at the end to show that our biggest value proposition is to hit the ground running. But when you go to these markets, it's like we say here in the U.S., in Rome, you do as Romans do. So domestic market, Brazil, Russia, and China. Brazil is second to China, as I mentioned before. We have a very mature range of capabilities. The business expertise skills are there. Financial sector, Brazil is top 3 worldwide in financial IT services, again because of the high inflationary period. Oops, we're too fast. Now, there's one slide here that I wanted to mention is, here. Global reach, see, maturing. Our global reach is maturing. It's exactly that mindset I was mentioning before. So then again, when you look at geographical facts, when you go into different markets, it's a big difference. I can hit the ground running here in California, taking a nighttime flight out of Sao Paulo or Rio, and I'm here at 10 a.m., ready to rock and roll. Come to Dallas, get on flight at 11 p.m., hit in Dallas 6 a.m., 3 hours flight back west, 9:40 at SFO. So it's not going across several time zones, it's not going across long distances horizontally, it's just going down a night flight. So that sometimes is also a key advantage. Okay, they asked me to talk a little bit about cloud computing. I'm going to run a little bit about this. Brazil, of course, has always been an early adopter. Amit mentioned about how well the penetration is for internet usage. Actually, it's the amount of time spent on internet and on social networks where Brazil really excels. We still have a lot of work to do because out of, let's say, 120 million economic active people, only 30 million, 35 million have access to internet so far. So we have a lot of ground to cover, but that's the opportunity. So cloud computing, I just put a slide here to make sure that we all understand what cloud computing means, because it's still a new technology, and a lot of people say one thing, a lot of people say another. But at the end of the day, we're talking about anything as a service. And I put that up there in my next slide. Well, anything as a service that you can put out there, a platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and so on. Here were some of the assumptions that Gartner was giving to us, and pardon me my slide as far as the formatting, it seems it doesn't fit well on the screen. Anyways, it just shows that the adoption of cloud computing is really going forward as it's leveling the playing field. Now, a lot of smaller companies can have the same type of computing power of the large-sized companies. I'm going to run these through because this is not exactly what the audience was expecting, but this was my briefing. What I like to say, though, is, so I can close up and then we can move on to the next speaker. At the end of the day, when you go down to Brazil to do business, first, like anywhere else, you have to find someone that has navigation intelligence. Navigation intelligence means right relationships. Means he knows which doors to knock on, and there are doors open when he knocks on them. So that's very key. Culturally speaking, we are probably the most aligned culture there is. Anyone in this room can have a Brazilian passport. In 2006, the Business Review Institute went out to study the mixes of the races. And they concluded, for a fact, that the most mixed race on the planet is the Brazilian race. You know, I can give you a really negative type of example, which is if you had to go underground and disguise yourself because you're running away from Scotland Yard and you're going to buy a passport, which nationality passport do you think will be the more expensive one?
Brazilian.
Brazilian. Why? Anyone can be a Brazilian. But there's a scientific evidence to that. If Michael Lee, what's your name? Fernando's true Brazilian. Fernando, fortunately, he doesn't have it. But if he had to go undergo a spleen transplant, he cannot do it here. He cannot do it in Europe. He has to do it in Brazil. Because that's where he will find a match for the spleen transplant. That's the scientific evidence for the mixes. So what that does at the end of the day, we have no quibbles as far as cultural differences to understanding a problem. So at the end of the day, what we're looking for, someone to solve a problem. We have a problem, we need a solution. And problem solving takes a lot of understanding, and it takes a lot of flexibility. And this is where we say in Brazil, we take a square ball, we trap it on our chest, and put it round on the ground. That's a soccer expression that we normally use, that we can tweak any type of problem you have and round it off, and off we go. So no cultural barrier is going to come in place. Just think about any given project you have. Paper is beautiful, right? Takes everything and anything. When you take that project off your paper and roll it out, oh shoot, this was right here, it's not working. You got to take it out. And that's what's so happening over there. It's working very well, and it's not in here in my project. I got to put it in. So you make those adjustments to your project, and you have geographically dispersed teams in different culturally influenced areas. So you have to bring them all to the same new level, the same new common language. And what happens is that you have geographical and cultural differences, that new language will take longer for you to align. And with Brazilian, we hit the ground running. There's no cultural elements that will come into play that will prevent them from immediate understanding what the problem is in front of them if they have the technical capability. To close up, there's a little small pizza story that I can tell when I'm actually going out there talking about Brazil, so people understand what is our true value when you compare going to the other markets, okay? So who likes pizza in this room? Who knows about North Beach Pizza here in the Bay Area? He used to be one shop, he's 3 now. But that shop is owned by John, a Greek guy. And I love his pizza because it's very thin and crispy. So every time I come to the Bay Area, I stop there and have my pizza with John. And the other day I was there and John was laughing his way all the way to the bank. had a huge grin in his face. And I said, John, what's up? Why are you so smiley? What's up? He said, you know, Robert, I beat those guys to the punch. What do you mean you beat those guys to the punch? Yeah, I beat Domino's Pizza and Pizza Hut. How come? No, I delivered a more amount of pizzas in one single day to the entire Bay Area than those guys did. I said, come on, John, get out of here. You're a single shop, one door. Those guys are franchise units all over the Bay Area. How could you possibly do that? He said, you know, Robert, I have a very tight delivery team here. I have 40 motorcyclists. 40 motorcyclists? Wow. Where do you find these guys? He says, you know, I only have one criteria to hire them. Which is, BayBrazil. I said, what do you mean, BayBrazil? What's going on there? He says, no, Robert, okay, they bring 3 critical success factors to my business. 1, business expertise. If they can drive those motorcycles like they do down in Sao Paulo, they can drive anywhere else, even compete with the rich cars in Mumbai. 2, reliability. They're not committed to a 9-to-5 job. They're not committed to a job description. They're committed to getting things done, whatever it takes. 3, flexibility. It doesn't matter what unforeseen event that happens in the front line, they take care of it right then and there. They don't come back to me with a problem. They just tell me what solution they gave. Now I ask normally the audience to take those 3 principles, business expertise, reliability and commitment, and flexibility, and tell me that in any given space you're involved in, those 3 are not critical. Well, those are part of our cultural DNA, which negatively has been called in the past jeitinho brasileiro. Today I call it positively, hit the ground running every time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.